I was born into a rich and important family in Tyrone, Ireland. I was the younger of two daughters, and we were the only children in the family. My sister was 6 years older than me, so we didn't spend much time together when I was young. I was only 12 when she got married. I remember her wedding day very clearly. Many people came, all laughing, singing, and happy, but I felt sad when my sister left with her new husband, Mr. Carew. She had always been very kind to me, even kinder than my mother, and so I cried when she left for her new home in Dublin. My mother and father didn't love me. They wanted sons and weren't very interested in me. About a year after my sister got married, a letter came from Mr. Carew. He said that my sister was ill and wanted to come home to Tyrone to stay with us and be with her family. I was sad that she was ill, but I was also happy she was coming to visit. They're leaving Dublin on Sunday, my father told me. They'll arrive here on Tuesday evening. Tuesday came, and it felt like a very long day. Hour after hour passed, and I kept listening, waiting for my sister and her husband to arrive. The sky grew dark, and soon it was midnight, but I couldn't sleep. I waited and listened. Suddenly, around 1 o'clock in the morning, I heard a noise from far away. I rushed out of my room and down to the living room. "They're here! They're here!" I called to my father, and we quickly opened the front door to see. We waited for a few minutes, hearing the noise again, someone crying far away in the night. But we saw nothing. There were no lights, no people. We went outside, expecting to see my sister and help her with her bags, but nobody was there. No one came. I looked at my father, and he looked at me. We didn't understand. "I know I heard a noise," he said. "Yes," I replied. "I heard it too, Father, but where are they?" We went back inside without another word. We were suddenly afraid. The next day, a man arrived and told us that my sister had passed away. On Sunday, she had felt ill, and by Monday, she was worse. She died on Tuesday at about 1 in the morning, the same time we were standing outside the house waiting for her. I never forgot that night. For the next 2 years, I was very sad. You could say I stopped living. I didn't want to do anything or speak to anyone. Mr. Carew soon married another young woman in Dublin, and I felt angry that he had forgotten my sister so quickly. I was now the only child of a rich and important family. Before I turned 14, men began to visit our home. They wanted to meet me, possibly to marry me, but none of them interested me. I felt I was too young to be married. When I turned 16, my mother decided to take me to Dublin. "Dublin is a big city," she said. "We'll meet richer, more interesting men than the ones back home in Tyrone. We can easily find you a good husband there." In Dublin, I began to feel happier. I met many friendly people and went dancing every evening. Lots of young men came to talk to me and ask me to dance. I enjoyed speaking with them, and I started to live and laugh again. I didn't think about my sister as much, but my mother wasn't so happy. She wanted me to find a husband quickly. One night, before I went to bed, she came into my room and said, "Do you know Lord Glenfallen?" "Oh, yes," I answered. "He's that old, ugly man from Karilla." "He's not ugly and he's not old," my mother quickly replied. "He comes from a very rich and important family, and he wants to marry you." "He loves you," my mother said. "He loves me and wants to marry me, but he's making a mistake," I replied. "I don't love him. I can't marry someone I don't love." "Think about it," my mother said softly. "He's a good man, and he wants to marry you. You're a very lucky young woman." My mother left the room, and I sat quietly for a long time. Lord Glenfallen was a nice, friendly man. I didn't love him, no, but I did like him. He always spoke about interesting things. I never felt happy at home with my parents, but I always felt better when I talked to him. The next morning, I saw my mother and said just one word. "Yes, Lord Glenfallen and I got married the next spring. 2 days after our wedding, we said goodbye to my family and left Tyrone. 3 days later, we arrived in Karilla, and I saw my husband's beautiful house for the first time. It was by a river with many trees and flowers in the garden. Birds sang in the trees, and the sky was blue. I stood next to him, taking it all in, and I felt very happy. "Come, my love," said my husband. "You must come in and meet Martha. She cooks, cleans, and knows everything about the house." So we went into the house, and I met Martha, a friendly old woman with smiling blue eyes. She showed me around the house, and suddenly, I felt excited to be there. It was such a happy place. Women sang in the kitchen, men built fires in the living rooms, and there were dogs and cats everywhere. "Come with me now, madam," said Martha, "and look at your bedroom. Then we can take up your bags, and you can wash before dinner." I followed her, and soon we arrived at a big brown door. "This is your room," she said, and opened the door. I stood there, suddenly cold with fear. In front of me stood something big and black. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was an old coat, but there was nobody inside it. I jumped back quickly, very afraid, and moved away from the door. "Is something wrong, madam?" Martha asked. "Nothing," I replied quickly. "Perhaps it's nothing." But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had seen something in there. "I thought I saw a big black coat when you opened the door." Martha's face turned white with fear. "What's wrong?" I asked her, feeling anxious. "Now you look frightened. What's going on?" "Something bad is going to happen," she said quietly. "When someone sees the black coat in this house, we know something bad is going to happen soon to the Glenfallen family. I saw the black coat when I was a child, and the next morning, old Lord Glenfallen died." "Something bad is going to happen now, madam. I know it," she added, her voice trembling. We went downstairs for dinner, but I felt a mix of unhappiness fear, and confusion. I didn't say anything to my husband about the black coat. I wanted to forget about it and feel happy again. The next day, Lord Glenfallen and I went for a walk to explore the house and gardens. "I like this house and all the people here," I said. "I'm happy to be here with you. It's much better than Tyrone." My husband remained quiet for a long time, walking with his head down, lost in thought. Suddenly he turned to me, took my hand, and said, "Fanny, listen to me carefully. There's something I must ask you. Please, only go into the rooms at the front of the house. Never go into the rooms at the back or the little garden by the back door. Never. Do you understand me?" His face was pale, filled with worry. I understood his words, but didn't understand why he had changed so much here in Karilla. He never smiled or laughed anymore. Maybe the back of the house was dangerous, I thought, but he didn't want to talk about it anymore. We went back into the house in silence, and again, I tried to forget his words, hoping to be happy once more. About a month later, I met the other woman for the first time. One day, I decided to take a walk in the gardens. It was a beautiful day, so after lunch I went to my room to get my hat and coat. But when I opened the door, I was startled to find a woman sitting by the fire. She was about 40 years old, wearing a black coat. Her face was pale, and when I looked closely, I noticed her eyes were white. She was blind. "Madam," I said, "this is my room. There's been a mistake." "No," she replied. "I don't think so." "Where is Lord Glenfallen?" I asked. "Down in the living room," she said, then added, "Tell Lord Glennon I want him." I was confused. "But who are you, and why are you in my room?" She stared at me and replied, "I am Lady Glenfallen, and I want you to leave my room now." "You are not Lady Glenfallen," I cried, feeling a rush of anger and disbelief. She slapped my face so hard that I cried out. Before I could react, Lord Glenfallen arrived. I ran out of the room as he rushed in, and I waited outside, trying to listen at the door. I didn't hear everything, but I could tell my husband was furious, and the blind woman was deeply upset. When he came out, I asked, "Who is that woman? Why is she in my room?" My husband didn't answer. His face was pale with fear, and he only said, "Forget her." But I couldn't forget her, and every day it became harder and harder to ignore what I had seen. Talking to my husband had become almost impossible. He was always quiet, always sad and afraid. He would sit for hours, staring into the fire with a look in his eyes that I couldn't understand. But he didn't want to tell me what was bothering him. One morning, after breakfast, Lord Glenfallen suddenly said, "I have the answer. We must leave for another country, maybe France or Spain. What do you think, Fanny?" Without waiting for my reply, he left the room quickly. I sat there, confused, thinking for a long time about why we had to leave Karilla. I didn't understand, and I didn't want to go far away from my parents in Tyrone. They were old now, and my father was sometimes ill. Even though they didn't love me much, I wanted to be close to them. I thought about it all day, and by the time my husband returned in the evening and sat down to dinner, I didn't know what to say to him. I stayed silent. That evening, feeling exhausted, I went to bed early. I wanted a good night's sleep to think things over again. I closed my eyes and drifted off, but my sleep was restless. I dreamed of the black coat. Suddenly, I woke up to find everything dark and still, except for a figure standing at the end of my bed. A hand holding a light emerged from the darkness, and behind the light stood the blind woman. She had a knife in her other hand. I tried to move, but she stopped me. "If you want to live, don't move," she said, her voice cold. "Tell me one thing. Did Lord Glenfallen marry you?" "Yes," I answered, shaking. "He married me in front of 100 people." "Well, that's sad," she replied, "because I don't think he told you he had a wife. I am his wife, not you, young woman. You must leave this house tomorrow, or—" She held up the knife. "If you stay, I'll kill you with this." Then, without another sound, she left the room. I couldn't sleep after that. When morning came, I told my husband everything. "Who is the blind woman?" I asked him. "She told me last night that she's your wife, that I'm not your wife." "Did you go into the rooms at the back of the house?" my husband asked angrily. "I told you never to go there." "No," I answered. "I was in my bed all night. She came to me. Please, tell me what's happening." His face turned pale, and he didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he said, "No, she's not my wife." "You are. Don't listen to her. She doesn't know what she's saying." He left the room without saying another word. I ran to find Martha. I didn't want to stay in that house anymore. I didn't understand my husband, and I was terrified. "Who is the blind woman?" I demanded. "Don't cry, madam," Martha said gently. "Sit down and listen to me. What I'm going to tell you is not nice." She paused, then spoke again. "The blind woman in the black coat is dead. You saw her ghost. She was married to your husband, and she was Lady Glenfallen. Nobody knows how she died, but someone saw your husband with a knife in his hand the night she died. Did he kill her? No one knows. When we found her, the knife was on the floor next to her, and her eyes were missing. Somebody cut out her eyes after she died. Maybe your husband didn't want her to see his other women, his next wife. You." I couldn't wait to speak to my husband again. I left that day. I was too afraid to stay another minute in Karilla. I knew the blind woman would return to kill me, just as she had killed before. I said goodbye to Martha, packed my bags, and told the driver to take me back to Tyrone. Now, I am happy living with my mother and father again. The house is quiet, and I sleep well each night. They are kinder to me than they were before. Sometimes my dead sister visits me at night, but I'm never afraid. She tells me that the blind woman is still trying to find me at Karilla, and that she wants to kill me out of jealousy. But she can never find me here. She must wait for the next Lady Glen Fallon.